Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media, the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Network studios, where... Well, no, I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm just going to let you see, if you can see, and find out. You won't be able to hear anything different. Oh, I'm sorry I said the word. Okay, anyway, what I got to say is this. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Biff is going to be your bartender tonight. And tonight, by the way, happens to be Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, the year of our Lord 2019. Biff, by the way, pours with the best of them. The lava lamp is, in fact, lighted to a place that you can't see, but by God, we're going to change that. But basically what that says is that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. Thanks for the prop, Meister. And you can listen to chat at shrmedia.com. You can also watch on two distinct and separate, great, fabulous media networks. Just started. This is only the second week on the Redcon 1 Media Network, courtesy of Big Sarge, and I greatly appreciate that. Also, we are broadcasting on the SHR Media Network. You can go to the SHR Media Facebook page or the SHR Media YouTube channel, and if you go quick like a bunny, like I said before, Redcon 1 Media. Get into your favorite search engine, Redcon 1 Media. When you're there, then go to the query for the Redcon 1 Media Facebook page, and you will be there live right now. And I just ran out of... I'm so amused by my current situation that I ran out of music, but I still have more to say right now, which is, I got to tell you that in this show, I do not water my politics, just like we don't water here at the saloon. We don't water our drinks, okay? Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law, we talk about it all right here. At the saloon, the speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that for God's sakes, common courtesy and decency, that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight in the saloon, because the Redcon 1 Media Network is new to some of the people that I have, I'm bringing back Dave Milner, who is the unpleasant blind guy who is, okay, he's blind, but he's not unpleasant, which I think you'll be able to discern in not too terribly a far distance from now. We're going to have Dave on and talk to him about the UK Brexit, things that are going on across the pond, and also about Tommy Robinson, and I've got some audio cuts up for that as well. The second hour, we're going to be talking about happy stories and good times. Got a lot of news, got a lot of Second Amendment stuff, and then we're going to go through, what do I customarily have in the second hour? That's right, you guessed it, happy stories. A little bit of an update while I'm thinking about it. This Thursday night, Sackheads Against Tyranny is not going to be here tomorrow night. Sackheads Clint, well, he's having some gravel removed from his eustachian tubes. He got into a terrible gravel accident, and unfortunately he's not going to be here tomorrow, so there will be no chat show, much to my serious and unmanly chagrin, or perhaps manly. And then Thursday, I've got a very special treat in the studio live. We're going to have James E. Horn, who is a terror and Islam expert. His CV is long and wide. He's written quite a number of books, and I'm not going to be talking to him on the phone. He's here in Sacramento for some other things, and when I contacted him, because he was going to be in Sacramento, I thought, hey, why should I talk to you over the telephone when I can have you direct here in the studio? So he's going to be here in the studio tentatively next Tuesday, and what an incredibly popular and busy dude, but he's already been on the show 3 times, and we're still sending stuff back and forth. He did say yes, but we're just confirming the time. Brendan Straka theoretically should be back on the show on next Tuesday night, right here, live and direct, on the SHR Media Network and the Redcon 1 Media Network. Brandon Straka, can't wait. God. And I'm negotiating for other people to be named a little bit later from now. All right, let's see if this is going to work. And, okay. Am I not getting anything from this? Okay, let me try this over again. We're in the process of attempting to contact Dave Milner. So, Dave, let's see if you're up here. There we go. Occasionally, because of technology being what it is, you have to dial a couple of times to get folks. So I'm going to ask Dave Milner, are you here, sir? Ah, okay, great. One of the reasons, folks, this is Dave Milner, M-I-L-N-E-R, and the reason I wanted to have him on tonight, although I just had John about 2 weeks ago, but that was for an entirely different audience. And I want to try to introduce people to the Redcon, I should say, to the Redcon Media Network audience. You have a background and a knowledge of, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to get to your social media, but if you would kind of give folks who have never heard you before, because now they're going to be a certain percentile of people that have never heard you and don't know who you are, could you give people a little bit of a background about you, where you came from, what you specialize in, what you do now, that kind of thing, so that they have a little bit of an idea about what you're about? Okay. 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 I'm glad you're doing that. Okay, can you tell folks a little bit about who Jeff Mitchell is and why he's significant to EDL? Okay. Okay, tell folks where you can be found on social media, and you got a space on Facebook, you've got a space on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. Tonight, the reason I wanted one of the major reasons I wanted to have you on is because of something new with Tommy Robinson. He's got essentially his own documentary out now. I think it's an hour long, an hour 3 minutes long, something like that. And it's called Panodrama. Now I'm not sure I know exactly where he gets the name, um, but I've got a good portion of it up right now, and the release of this created a massive stir, a big row, to the point, well, we're going to get into some of the things that happened after the release of this. But in the UK, can you explain to folks that are listening how UK media works? In other words, there's anti-Beeb, which is the BBC, and instead of a panoply of channels like we have here in the United States, BBC is up to, I don't know what, 3 channels, 4 channels, 5 channels, something like that. Right. Yep. Oh, okay, all right. Now I'm getting to understand why it's panodrama. Okay, all righty. So, would this be accurate in saying that this is a bit of a what he did is a little bit of a UK version of what James O'Keefe did in Project Veritas? Right. Okay, so essentially what we have is Tommy Robinson, who was jailed essentially for daring to speak the truth in the UK, where, folks, let's remind everyone, there is no such thing as the First Amendment in the United Kingdom at all, period, end of statement. And I would submit that a great portion of the UK administrators, bureaucrats, politicians live in great fear because of the various political aspects of Islam as it impacts the UK. And it essentially Islam impacts the UK as Latinos, Hispanics tend to impact the United States of America, and certainly the southern portion of the United States of America. Now, that having been seen, the UK has pretty much a chokehold on uh, all the TV shows, radio shows, etc. So if you want to broadcast on radio or television, you're going to go to the BBC. Period. End of statement. And if they cut you off, then you're not going to have a very big venue to display whatever it is that you have to say. And frequently, they're not going to let you on in the first place, since one of the policies in the UK right now, certainly in the BBC, is if you are a global warming or climate denier, you're not even going to get on the BBC. The policy is such that they're not going to let you on. There will be no opposing voices on the BBC to something like that. Now, that having been said, can you imagine their chagrin, as Dave Milner just indicated, when it turns out that they've been turned upside down by their very nemesis, Tommy Robinson, who they dislike, okay, they despise to their very core. I'm going to start I'm going to start just a portion of this panodrama. And I think after a couple of minutes, you're going to get sort of the flavor of what it is that happened and how it is that they decided that they were going to turn the tables on the BBC and the media Here in the United States, I call them the American media maggots. In the UK, well, you guys are going to have to figure out your own terms for this guy. This is Tommy Robinson. He's holding up a big placard that says BBC Fake News. Now, this happens to be an exclusive documentary that he had filmed by himself. And of course, as Dave indicated, it's called Panodrama, and it's subtitled An Expose. This is Tommy Robinson being arrested in Leeds, the UK. He's essentially being arrested for live streaming. And he's transported away. Now we're back in London. Does that sound a little bit similar to here in the United States? Any information that you'd like to impart at this point, Dave Milner, about what Tommy Robinson is doing and saying? Let's keep going with Tommy Robinson. He's got a few things to say, and then we'll see and hear how it is that he decides that he's going to have a... Because at this point, all right, let's do the obvious. Let's do BZ's reversal theory, and that's this. Let's say that there were Muslims in a jail or a prison setting, and they were afraid of the food that was being served to them by the Christians, Catholics, fill in whatever the word, the applicable word may be. People would be corking off about that sort of thing in the United States and also across the pond in the UK. Let's continue with Tommy. That wasn't biased at all, was it? Okay, let's stop right here. It's a good time to take a break. Folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin. That is I, right here in the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Live and direct in the SHR Media studios, where we are 2 miles, now I'm pointing a different direction, 2 miles east of the Bill Mill, the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Capitol building in Sacramento, California at 10th and L Streets. Maybe a little bit later on I'll tell you what's been happening around here, literally around the studios, and also up and down the street adjacent us, and also near City Hall, and also at the Capitol building, and what may occur in the future. The reason I wanted to play this, and the reason I wanted to have Dave Milner on tonight, is some people who may be listening may say something similar to, who gives a crap about some British dude, some white guy, that thinks that he's been oppressed? Oh, boo-hoo on him. Do you see the linkages between what's been occurring with him and any other situation that's been occurring here and will continue to occur in the United States of America? As Tommy Robinson just said, it's not all about him. It's about everything else, essentially, meaning that if the UK can do that to Tommy Robinson, and the American media maggots can do what they wish with President Donald John Trump and anyone who remotely is linked to him in any way, be it administrative, bureaucratically, politically, or if you just happen to vote for the guy. Well, if they can do that to him and they can do it to Trump, what do you think may possibly be the reason for anyone deciding not to do that to you? Folks, I'm BZ. You're listening to Dave Milner. We're going to take a break and be right back.
Hey, this is Michael Wright. And I'm Shannon Wright. Join us for the Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on SHR Media. Why are they joining us? For fun things like sports, politics. Oh, maybe some news and entertainment? And all kinds of other things. Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m., here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside its dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunnis. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to SHRmedia.com. And Lid Radio, we fight for the truth and justice and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnis. Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic, concealed carry, and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing issues of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future.
Stephen Tierney on SHRmedia.com. Go there quick like the money, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct from the SHR Media Network. SHRmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a left-out media, and deceptive Islam. The one saving the sphere is one man with a K. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud from SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's BDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you're listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here out of the SHR Media Studios, 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the Capitol building in Sacramento, where late at night after I go out that door right there, now that's changed because of the orientation of the studio. When I go out that door, I will smell brimstone and sulfur, and I will hear the cries of common sense dying from that particular building, because after all, it's California and it's Sacramento, and that's what they do. That's part of their job. Tonight, for the first hour, I have Dave Milner. We were listening to a little bit of the Tommy Robinson film, a documentary called Panodrama. And for those who just literally may have tuned in, Dave Milner, can you give us an overall gist of what the new documentary by Tommy Robinson, Panodrama, is about and what he's done with it? Yeah, bull. It was very well done. Well, as you might expect, what occurred is that it got him further kicked off a whole bunch of media sites, as you would expect, because, hey, if you're going to be discriminatory, you might as well be discriminatory in a much wider and broader fashion. So here's what happened next to Tommy Robinson. Yes. Let's stop right there just for a second. I sent this to President Trump, and it's like farting in the wind. But I said, let me throw this out to you, Dave Miller, and anybody and everybody that's listening on the Redcon 1 Media and also on the SHR Media Network. What do you think would happen? I posed this question to one and all, people listening live in chat and also in the podcast. What do you think would happen if one day, tomorrow, President Trump decided, you know what, I'm giving up Twitter, and from now on, all of my communications are going to be on Gab.ai or Spreely or something like that. What do you think would happen to Twitter if Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, completely abandoned the standard leftist media platforms, essentially semi-deplatforming them, because you know for a fact hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of people who were customarily, primarily on Twitter now migrated over to whatever platform he went to. That's the point. That's the point of Dave. That's the point of me. That's the point of Tommy Robinson. That's the point of the guy that just was speaking right there. His name is Avi Yemini. That's the entire point of this, is where is it that we can find a good, reliable platform for conservatives where we won't be shut down? Just as Dave said, just as Avi indicated, and Tommy Robinson himself said, he was completely deplatformed off of Facebook. Dave Milner, now back to you. Was or is Tommy Robinson, is he already off of Twitter? My guess would be he's already been kicked off Twitter. Okay. He is right there. He's done more to promote them, unfortunately in a negative way. He's done for the media what he's done for politicians. If he were not there, you would have Hillary Clinton, and you would not really have discovered the true nature of leftists in politics, nor would you have discovered the absolute craven cowards that are what I term the American media maggots here in the United States. The depth and breadth to which they will go in order to ensure that, like many rows of mushrooms, you are kept in the dark and fed shit. And it's unfortunately very true. But without Donald Trump being here, all of these other things that you intuited naturally, I believe, would not have come and been exposed. And I've said for quite some time, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think there is much more yet to come. I have another brief cut that I'd like to play. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to all of it. Now Tommy Robinson is being intimidated at his house by the far left, and they're working with jihadi lawyers and the various forms of media. And this is Tommy Robinson. Yes. Okay, let's stop right there for a second because I'm running out of time for the first hour. Essentially, what we have there is a situation with Tommy Robinson in which he is being doxxed by the left. And that occurred to a number of politicians on the right already in D.C. And it is a way that the left has of exposing your name, your address, any information they could possibly come in possession of, and spread it out on the internet so that your life from that point on is made essentially a living hell. I'd like to change topics just a little bit. Let's talk about Brexit. And one of the things that Dave Milner does is he keeps abreast of what's happening in Brexit. I have a story about Brexit involving French President Emmanuel Macron. But before I get to this article, is there anything that you might have or like to add about anything involving the status of Brexit right now? Dave Milner. In this Daily Mail article, this is an organ of the UK. The headline is this: Brexit is an irresponsible lie peddled by angermongers backed by fake news that has caused Europe's biggest crisis since World War II. And I find that I find it interesting that the UK uses this word, rages French President Emmanuel Macron. And the story goes, Emmanuel Macron has branded Brexit an irresponsible lie, calling it Europe's worst crisis since World War II. In his most ferocious attack on Brexit to date, the French president said Britain's withdrawal was peddled by angermongers and fake news and offers nothing. So he published his open letter in 22 EU languages, shared it on his Twitter feed, just weeks before Britain leaves the 28-member union. They're still raging at this. Does anybody have any prognostications, Dave Milner, as to, or is it just so desperately up at the air that at this point no one has an idea if the UK will leave the European Union or not? Yeah. Yeah, there was no asterisk. There was no asterisk after that where it said asterisk, except for this and that and the other thing. By the way, also, since you mentioned that, I believe I found the article with which you were referring just a minute or so earlier. This too is from the Daily Mail. Former MI6 chief blasts PM's Brexit deal as disastrous and warns it will lead to no control over EU migration. A former head of MI6 has said a no-deal Brexit puts Britain in a stronger position than Theresa May's deal in a stinging attack. Sir Richard Dearlove called the Prime Minister's deal disastrous, adding it offers no tangible benefits for Britain and will lead to no control over EU migration. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what you were directly referring to. Well, I will, but don't go away so fast unless you really have to go away, unless you got to go to the bathroom or something like that, because we got 5 more minutes. Anyway, in those 5 more minutes, I found, in that period of time, I found another article that directly affects people in the UK. And this is, well, it's here in the United States, and it will, I suspect, in the future, possibly take this kind of turn or tone as well. This is from BBC News. I'm kind of surprised that the BBC News is covering it. The headline reads, Bacon and Butter Banned from Farm Drop London Underground Advert. Now, why might that be, I wonder, as BZ scratches his head? An advert designed to run on the London Underground was rejected because it contained bacon, butter, eggs, and jam, an online supermarket said. Farm Drop submitted a photograph which included images of the meat, dairy products, and spread. Transport for London TfL said it was up to advertisers to make sure any items featured were high fat, sugar, and salt, HFSS compliant. okay, so leftists are getting into what it is that you can see in an advertisement. That's how in the tank the media is in the United Kingdom as well. Um, I want to cover this real quick, and I know you did too before we go. This was a story that you pointed out to me, and it occurred, I think it came out last week, but this is from the Washington Examiner. And it points out something very, very obvious, but it also is a great indicator of things that are occurring now in the media and things that, of course, will occur in the future. The headline on this is Too Little Too Late. Washington Post admits it screwed up big in the Covington Catholic story. Imagine that. But like I've said in the past, isn't it kind of amazing the difference that I don't know? I think it's like a $250 million defamation lawsuit by a high school kid brought by a high-powered attorney. Isn't that amazing? What a difference that lawsuit can make. The Washington Post published an editor's note Friday evening admitting, way too late, that it badly bungled its coverage of the Covington Catholic High School story. And as a result, the Washington Post, where I say democracy, they say their motto is democracy dies in darkness. I say democracy dies right there in D.C. Anyway, any final thoughts about that particular story, Dave Miller? Right. Well, absolutely it does. Doxing has to stop. Because what works for the left also happens to work for the right, but unfortunately the left, thank God in some ways, leftists don't understand this bi-directional function. And that is now, especially with kids, a 16-year-old, this stuff will follow him no matter what anyone says. This stuff will follow him until the end of his days because you can't remove it from the internet. Conversely, all the rest of this ridiculous crap that goes on at the behest of leftists, that is also immured equally well on the internet. Dave Milner, thanks for being on in the first hour right here. Recap, if you will, where folks can find you, read you, and listen to your show, please. That's correct. Dave, you may enjoy next Thursday's show. Like I indicated earlier at the show, I've got a terror and Islam expert, Mr. James E. Horn, live in the studio for the entire first hour. Folks, that was Dave Milner. Greatly appreciated. Kudos to him. We're going to take a break and be right back. Won't we? Oh, yeah. The machine is trying to tell me that I need to tell you that I'm the bloviating Zeppelin right here, one each, in the SHR Media studios, where you can be heard on the Redcon 1 Media Network and also the SHR Media Network. Now I'm getting a green light. It says, yeah, I can go to the break.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics,
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
and all kinds of other things.
Money, recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dennett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to SHRmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth and justice and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dennett. Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, getting firearms training. It's not a boys club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic, concealed carry, and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
New show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On SHRmedia.com, go there quick like the money, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct from the SHR Media Network. SHRmedia.com, be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a left-out media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing we fear is one man with a K. I'm Dave Miller. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's PBL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no Spreaker ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to SHRmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Welcome. It's now the second hour of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, occupied by leftists. And I am literally broadcasting 2 miles east of the belly of the beast, the Bill Mill, the locus of evil on the entire left coast in California, the Capitol building at 10th and L. We're that close to the veritable locus of evil. Now, we know for a fact that a lot of things have occurred recently with regard to hate crime hoaxes. The biggest, largest conglomeration of crap was Jussie Smollett, in which he claimed that, and this is kind of odd, how sad do you have to be when you can't find any old average white guy to literally beat you up? You have to pay a couple of Jamaican bodybuilders to beat you up, air quotes, beat you up. How sad is that? Well, I have since discovered that if you thought that's where it stopped, no. There's another incident that just occurred, and it indicates that the hate crime hoaxes, they just keep on coming. This is from an article that I found on Breitbart.com, and the headline goes like this: prosecutors, and if this isn't just another bundle of schadenfreude, I don't know what is. This is from Breitbart.com. Prosecutors charge LGBT activist with burning down own home with pets inside. Michigan prosecutors say Nikki Jolie, a longtime LGBT activist, set fire to her home and killed her pets due to resentment from subsiding controversy over the enactment of non-discrimination legislation that he advocated for. Okay, so let's do this for a second, shall we? Let's leave the identity politics out of the scenario for a moment. What kind of a sick and twisted individual do you have to be in order to set your own home on fire for fill in the blank motivation, knowing and then allowing your very own pets to immolate inside? The Detroit News reported a couple of Mondays ago that law enforcement charged Jolie, a transgender man from Jackson, Michigan, who burned down her own home, killing 5 pets inside, in which was initially investigated by the FBI as an alleged hate crime in 2017. So this individual makes an allegation of the burning of the house as a hate crime. The FBI comes to investigate. The newspaper, citing 2 individuals who worked alongside Jolie at St. John's United Church of Christ, where the Jackson Pride Center is based from, reported that Jolie, 54, had become frustrated with the controversy over gay rights, and frustrated that it had died down with the passage of the non-discrimination law. In other words, apparently the law was starting to work, but that's not good enough or sufficient, or didn't seem to keep Jolie in the spotlight enough. Because just as it was with Jussie Smollett, it's all about him. In this unit here, now it's all about him, her as well. The Detroit News reported. Meanwhile, a police investigative report suggests a possible reason for the fire. 2 people who worked with Jolie at St. John's United Church of Christ, where the Jackson Pride Center was located, said he had been frustrated about the gay rights controversy and how it had died down. The church officials, Barbara Shelton and Bobby James, when asked by police about a possible motive for the fire, said Jolie was disappointed the Jackson Pride Parade and Festival, held 5 days before the blaze, hadn't received more attention or protests. So it's, again, not about the protests or the attention. Well, yeah, it is about the attention, but it's about the attention given to him. Because Jolie had prior received numerous accolades about the things that he or she had done as the community. No one was home as flames leaped from the house Jolie shared with Moore, but the home wasn't unoccupied. A neighbor, knowing the couple had pets, kicked in the front door, but it was too hot to go inside, police said. When firefighters tried to open the back door, it was blocked by the body of a dog. All 5 animals died, 2 German Shepherds and 3 cats. Traces of gasoline were later found in 5 rooms in the first floor of the 2-story wooden frame home, according to the police report. So, please allow me to pose a question, if I might. Considering the extremely sensitive aspect of investigations of this nature, meaning that local departments have the easy ability to step on a series of huge social landmines and take themselves some really serious societal, national, even budgetary, and even violent casualties, do you think that law enforcement and local prosecutors take a decision like this lightly, considering what happened in Ferguson, and also with what happened in Sacramento? With sensitive cases like this, I don't. Okay, so let me translate for you. There's something likely extremely compelling to the case to have crafted that decision by the departments to prosecute in light of today's social justice warrior political environment. Okay, so that said, you see some possible threads here, forms of linkage with the Jussie Smollett case, and I'll be very specific and delineate, that's narcissism, stages of and enhancements involving victimhood, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, sociopathy, and in this case, sheer evil regarding your pets. And yet, did we happen to see PETA weigh in on this situation? And you, of course, know, no matter what, the answer is going to be no. The sequence of events would have made it difficult for anyone but Jolie to set the fire, Grove said in a police report. The timeline shows a window of less than 5 minutes for another person to enter the residence, splash gasoline around, ignite the fire, and then leave without being seen, wrote Grove. Jolie told an insurance company investigator the arsonist must have been in the home at the same time he was, according to the report. That's it. That makes sense. Lab tests by police found traces of gasoline on the clothes Jolie was wearing on the day of the fire, said the report. I know. Wait a minute. If I only had a producer, you would have heard something like this on the day of the fire. But I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. 2 weeks after the fire, Jolie was questioned for 4 hours by a city police detective and then 2 FBI agents. During the interview, he drooped his head, staring at the floor, not looking at his interlocutors, according to the report. He didn't admit setting the fire, but he didn't deny it anyway. So being a victim, being a victim in 2019 carries with it not just a sense of martyrdom, but that of massive entitlement. And truth be told, its very own awarded badge of courage by leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots. So in the land of leftists now, you are nothing anymore unless you are a significant victim of fill in the blank. And you, this is the cool thing, you get to choose the grievance du jour. Now, traditionally involving some kind of an obe or an ist or an ism at the end of the word. And here's a little bit of proof by a person that I enjoy playing, and that is Tucker Carlson. And I like him. This is Jussie Smollett. Thank you, Jesse. Imagine that. Yeah. Don Lemon. I am impressed. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. Right. No. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Of course. Oh yeah. And of course, Middle America is always Caucasoid, and they always wear MAGA hats. Now, I'm kind of surprised about this Jolie situation. From the stories that I've read, Jolie did not point a finger at a specific cadre of individuals. But come on, folks, if it's LGBT, it had to be a Caucasoid, right? And obviously, it had to be someone from a flyover state. And obviously, it had to be someone wearing a MAGA hat, right? Come on, wake up, wake up.
Donald would very much like to keep up those attacks on those people, attacking them while continuing to feel oppressed. That is why when Smiley was finally caught, Lamont reacted in a very puzzling way. He didn't seem especially concerned that his buddy had lied to further divide the country from North America, which he did. No.
No.
The according to Don Lamont, is that Smolet's arrest might discredit the call to victimize. This is playing out every single moment.
Yeah.
In cable news, Sean Hannity's getting paid to be Justice Smolet's lawyer.
Every single moment. Oh, okay, now what do you mean, Don Lamont? Do you mean that that there's victimhood going on all across the fruited plain, or do you mean that there are hoaxes like Jussie Smollett and like Jolie that are being conducted all across the fruited plains? Well, you know what? That would be it, because after this story, I have some more stories for you about hoaxes.
Every single second. Tucker Carlson is getting paid Justice Smollett's lunch. Every single second.
Yeah.
Tell the truth about a hate hoax. You're paid. What's the cost of this attitude so poorly on display to our society? What does it do to us? Well, think of it this way. What would happen to your kids if you woke them up every morning by telling them that they were victims? No matter how hard they work, people would always hate them just for who they are. What if you did that? Would that be good parenting? Would it make your kids stronger, happier, more successful?
If you're a leftist and a social justice warrior, that's deigning to even say that you would stoop low enough to actually have kids.
Good parents would never do that. Good parents tell their kids.
Yeah, well, I think you see where that went. This explains, of course, why leftists and Democrats are on the constant prowl for ideas or activities or events or words or writings by and from which to be victimized. The victimhood beast requires constant stroking and stoking and feeding in order to operate and grow. Yeah, grow. It's got to grow. Victimhood is big business in the United States. I'd go so far as to say that these days now, it's an industry. It's its own industry. Well, look, why wouldn't it be? Let's tick off a few things. Number one, well, you know it can pay extremely well, and as such, well, yeah, I guess it has become an industry. And it's a beast that I said it constantly screams, feed me now. Well, that isn't the end, and it wasn't the beginning. That constant seeking, that building, restructuring, and reordering of what I call, and you tell me where I'm wrong, I say it's the hierarchy of victims. Victimhood has a definite hierarchy, and it's going to continue unchecked by leftists, Democrats, and it's going to be aided and abetted, obviously, by the American media maggots. And here's a place, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I always refer people to this great website, very plain looking, but you can find everything you need to see right there, fakehatecrimes.org. Fakehatecrimes.org. It's a deep and a detailed repository of just that. Here's something I found out that's interesting about fakehatecrimes.org. If you want to go to that site, like I've done, and paste that site into social media, an interesting point I've discovered is that when you do it on Facebook or you do it on Twitter, for example, you know how these organizations give you a little bit of a blurb or maybe a copy of the photograph that accompanies the article? When I go to fakehatecrimes.org and I paste that link into social media, it will below give me 404 forbidden. 404 forbidden, meaning it doesn't want to make anybody's access to that easy. And as far as they're concerned in social media, going there is forbidden. Forbidden. But wait, there's more. All you have to do is check tomorrow's news, because there will always be more. Okay. All right, hold on a second. Let's back up that car wash. Let's have some additional facts from, of all places, USA Today. Hate crime hoaxes, like Jussie Smollett's alleged attack, are more common than you think. Oh, USA Today, you're going to get hated for that. In writing a book about hate crime hoaxes, I found, the author of this piece, Wilfred Riley, I found more than 400. Such frauds damage good race relations. The hate attack on Empire star Jussie Smollett is now alleged to be a hoax. That shouldn't surprise anybody. The questions here are pretty obvious. How many Trump supporters even exist in the downtown of a city that went 83% for Hillary Clinton, and how many of them watch Empire? How many guys are looking for a fight, carry rope and bottles of bleach around with them? Almost every normal citizen had questions like these about this incident, and we were justified in asking those questions. Nobody wanted to ask those questions. Nobody wanted to discuss those questions. That this case turned out to be a hoax shouldn't come as too big of a shock. A great many hate crimes turn out to be hoaxes. Simply looking at what happened to the most likely reported hate crime stories over the past 4 to 5 years illustrates that. Not only would the Smollett case, but also the Yasmin Savid, Air Force Academy, Eastern Michigan, Wisconsin Parkside, Keene College, Covington Catholic, and Hopewell Baptist burning. Racial scandals all turned out to be fakes. And these cases are not isolated outliers. This guy was doing research for his book, Hate Crime Hoax, and he says, I was able to easily put together a data set of 409 confirmed hate hoaxes, an overlapping but substantially different list of 348 hoaxes existing at, just as I indicated, fakehatecrimes.org, and researcher Laird Wilcox put together another list of at least 300 in his still contemporary book, Crying Wolf. To put these numbers in context, a little over 7,000 hate crimes were reported by the FBI in 2017, and about 8 to 10% are widely reported enough to catch the eye of a national researcher. Okay, this is where I have to step in, because even I, as ancient and doddering as I am, even I can hearken back to the Tawana Brawley case or the Duke Lacrosse case. And then the story continues. Hate crime hoaxers are calling attention to a problem that is a very small part of total crimes. There is very little brutally violent racism in the modern United States of America. There are less than 7,000 real hate crimes reported in a typical year. Interracial crime is quite rare. Stop. Let me repeat that again. Interracial crime is quite rare. 84% of white murder victims and 93% of black murder victims are killed by criminals of their own race. And the person most likely to kill you is your ex-wife or husband. When violent interracial crimes do occur, whites are at least as likely to be the targets as are minorities. Simply put, Klansmen armed with nooses are not lurking on Chicago street corners. In this context, when hate hoaxers actually do what they really do, is worsen generally good race relations and distract attention from real problems. As Chicago's disgusted top cop, and I played this. This was a great 8 minutes of audio about 2 weeks ago that I played. Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson pointed out that skilled police officers spent 4 weeks tracking down Smollett's imaginary attackers in a city that has seen 28 murders as of February 9th, according to the Chicago Tribune. We all, media and citizens alike, would be better served to focus on real issues than on fairy tales like Jussie Smollett's. You and I both know that this isn't going to stop. And that's for any number of reasons. The largest of which is, I think, it has become like racial and poverty pimps. There are victimhood pimps as well. It's an industry. It's a cottage industry that's burgeoning and growing. It pays well. It keeps that industry moving. It provides its blood, sometimes literally. It soothes sensitive and snowflakey egos. But mostly, and I think, in my opinion, this is the most motivating aspect of it all. In the world of leftists, it provides and conveys, both at once, it provides and conveys status. And what a sad aspect that is in 2019 life. Here's an article from the New York Post. The list of bogus hate crimes in the Trump era is long. This is out of the New York Post. In the wake of the arrest of actor Jussie Smollett, charged with staging his own racist and homophobic attack, here's just a couple of the other crimes that have been given prominent display from the media since the 2016 election. Prominent display. Often accompanied by politicians decrying, "This is the state of America today." And, well, they turn out to be frauds. Just before the 2016 election, 111-year-old Hopewell Baptist Church was attacked with fire and graffiti that said, "Vote Trump." The political message of the vandalism is obviously an attempt to sway public opinion regarding the upcoming election, said Representative Benny Thompson of Mississippi, a Democrat. It turns out the arsonist was Andrew McClinton, 48, an African-American member of the church. Hell, Trump, and fucking church were spray painted on St. David's Episcopal Church in Indiana after the election. It was the gay organ player who did it. Over the course of the week, I was fearful, scared, and alone too in my fear. George Nathaniel Nathan Stang, 26, explained to the Indy Star. I guess one of the driving factors behind me committing the act was that I wanted other people to be scared right along with me. Yasmin Seweid, S-E-W-E-I-D, Seweld, 18, told police that 3 Donald Trump supporters harassed her and tried to steal her hijab on the number 6 train in New York City. But the December 1st, 2016 alleged hate crime fell apart 2 weeks later when Seweid admitted she made the whole thing up because she'd been out late drinking with friends. Uh-oh, a Muslim out drinking with friends. Wait a minute. If I only had a producer. Wait a minute, a Muslim out drinking with friends. Right. She was afraid by her strict Muslim Egyptian father, and she was afraid that, well, he would be angry. And probably he was. Now he had 2 reasons for being angry. Eastern Michigan University in Ypsilanti was vandalized for months by graffiti that said, "Leave niggers" and KKK. A former student, African-American Eddie Curlin, 29, was eventually caught. It was totally self-serving, said Robert Hayes, the university's chief of police. It was not driven by politics. It was not driven by race. I've got more to tell you. Would you imagine that? That can't possibly be. More hate crimes committed by the people that are allegedly the victims, but not? You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin. That is me, right here, live and direct in the SHR Media studios, newly renovated, I should point out. And you can hear us at shrmedia.com, where you can listen and chat, on the Redcon 1 Media Network, and also on the SHR Media Network itself. Don't go anywhere. Last half hour coming up.
All kinds of other things.
Recipes, events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside its dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunnis. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com and Lid Radio. Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
New show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On SHRmedia.com, go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. SHRmedia.com, be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy, and catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EBL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the final 25 minutes of the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media studios. If you are watching right now on Redcon 1 Media, God bless you, thank you very much. I appreciate your being here. Please continue to listen Tuesday and Thursday nights. From SHR, thanks for being here. Thanks for being in the SHR Media chat room. And also I want to tell everybody that on Thursday, well, tomorrow night there's not going to be a Sackheads radio show, a Sackheads Against Tyranny show. However, I will be back on Thursday night, and I will have a special in-studio guest. He is a terror and Islamic expert. He's been a naval intelligence individual. He has a huge CV that we're going to be talking about, and he's going to be talking about more aspects of Islam across the pond and also what's happening here. And the reason that I'm having him on, now this is coincidence that Dave was here tonight because I'd scheduled this gentleman over a week ago. But this just happens to be pointing out the various aspects of Islam week for me. And I wanted to make sure that if he was available this Thursday, that I think it's always cool to have somebody actually in the studio, and I'm going to be looking right across at him about 2 feet away. There's another microphone right over there. And we're going to be talking, having a little tete-a-tete, a little conversazione, as they say in Italian. And I think it's going to be a really good time. Don't tell anyone. We've agreed that he's going to be here for about an hour. Now, if BZ is sneaky this way, because this has occasionally occurred where somebody has said, yeah, you know what, I'll be here for 15 minutes. And it turns out to be a half hour. And at the end of the hour, on top of the hour, I usually ask people, hey, we're having a good time. Would you like to stand and go through the break and come back for the next half hour? Okay, invariably they say yes. Well, BZ being who he is, at the top of the hour, after 1 hour goes by, do you suspect that BZ is probably going to ask James E. Horn, who's the person that I'm going to be having in the studio, do you think I might possibly be asking him if he'd be welcome? Well, of course he'll be welcome to stay, But do you think I'm going to be asking him to stay? Well, the answer is yeah, you betcha. I might get James Horn for 2 hours. Go back a little bit. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it was late last year, maybe September, I had Brandon Straka on for the first time. Brandon Straka he'd never been on the show before. And of course, everybody knows that he's the creator of the entire walkaway, #walkaway movement. And he's been extremely popular. He spoke at CPAC, and just this last Sunday, he was on the Mark Levin show on Fox News for Life, Life, Liberty, and Levin. And he was on for the entire hour in the Mark Levin show. Well, the first time I had Brandon Straka on, he didn't know me from any pisshead down the street. And I got him to stay on for an hour. Well, it was really, really, really late at night, because when I get people on the show here at 8 p.m. Pacific, it's 11 p.m. at the East Coast, and he's on the East Coast, obviously. For whatever the hell reasons, most of my guests are on the East Coast. Well, I got him to stay for an hour. No alcohol was involved that I could tell. And I got him to stay on for another hour. He'd never done that before. And essentially what he said is, I had a great time tonight. Thanks for having me. He thanked me. Thanks for having me on. And you know what? I'll come back any damn time you want me to. So I had him back 2 subsequent times. Each time, we talked about a whole host of stuff, and he hasn't given me a specific time. I've asked him to be here on Tuesday. He's already agreed to come back. We're just trying to figure out the specifics. I'm hoping that it's going to be on Tuesday, but maybe Tuesday, maybe Thursday. I'm going to have Brandon Straka, not in the studio, of course, because we're only separated by 3,500 miles. But I'm going to have him on the air, and we're going to talk about some of the new things that are coming down the pike with regard to Brandon Straka, his website, and a lot of the things that he has in the future. One massive thing that he has in the future that I'm going to ask him about, that I've heard a rumor of, but I just want to confirm. So next week, with luck and no flooding, and the ship don't rise, or the flood don't rise, or the boat don't rise, or the boot don't sink, Brandon Straka here in the saloon. I was talking about hate crime hoaxes, and I had one, last one that I mentioned was the Eastern Michigan University in Ypsilanti. This is interesting. Here's a hate crime hoax in which more than 2,000 bomb threats to Jewish institutions, including the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., were made in the first 3 months of 2017. My personal take is, it's a statement of where we are in this country. Michael Feinstein, the chief executive of the Bender Jewish Community Center of Greater Washington in Rockville, Maryland, told the Times. In March 2017, an arrest was finally made in many of the incidents, that of a 19-year-old Jewish Israeli American named Michael Ron David Kadar. Kadar had been rejected from the Israeli Defense Forces over mental health issues and claimed in his defense that he had a brain tumor. A few of the threats, by the way, didn't come from the Jewish teenager. At least 8 were the work of Juan Thompson, 32, who was trying to frame a woman who'd been broken up. Thompson, a black journalist, had previously been fired from The Intercept for making up sources and stories. Imagine that! In response to his firing, he blamed the white New York media and claimed his editors, well, okay, come on, of course, they were racists, weren't they? 42 Jewish tombstones were toppled in Washington Cemetery in Midwood, Brooklyn in March 2017. While officials were worried it was an anti-Semitic act, after an investigation, the NYPD named another suspect, the wind. Oh, speaking of the wind, have I got a great story for you after this? Oh my God, if you think that you've heard silly shit before, I've got some absolutely wacky, I don't even know how to quantify this. You'll laugh your ass off. At the end of this show, after I read this story to you, if you're looking to lose weight, you will in fact lose some of your ass. I could use that. Maybe you could too. I will be getting to that story. The wind was responsible for the toppling of Jewish tombstones in a Washington cemetery in Midwood, Brooklyn. It was due to neglect or weather factors like soil and dirt and wind. There's no evidence to suggest this was a case of vandalism, a police spokesman said. 5 black cadet candidates were bombarded with hate speech on message boards at the Air Force Academy. I remember this very distinctly. This popped up all over the media. The Air Force Academy Preparatory School in September of 2017. It turns out the comments were written by one of the African American cadets. CNN commentator Frida Gitis didn't think that point mattered much in a follow-up report, saying, "The election of President Donald Trump lifted the rock under which much of the hatred had hidden, allowing it to squirm out into the light." Give me a break. African-American Adwoa Lewis, 20, of Long Island, said 4 teens yelled, "Trump 2016, told her she didn't belong here, and slashed her tires in September of 2018, leaving a note that read, "Go home." She later admitted to making the story up and putting the note on her own car. Union Temple in Brooklyn was defaced by messages such as "Die Jew rats" and "Jew better be ready" in early November 2018. The culprit? Gay African-American James Polite, odd name, who had previously interned for City Council Speaker Christine Quinn and was raised by Jewish foster parents. He was charged for hate crimes for the graffitiing and setting fires at 4 other Jewish temples and schools. But friends and advocates, of course, friends and advocates say bigotry isn't to blame. Polite is bipolar and was convinced that the FBI and CIA had taken over the city's homeless shelter system. Maybe we need somebody to investigate that. More than 100 students marched to demand safe spaces after KKK, swastikas, and the last name of 4 black and Latino students were scrawled in a bathroom stall at Goucher College near Baltimore in November 2018. But it turned out that one of those graffitied names, Flynn Arthur, 21, was the person responsible. The biracial lacrosse player explained to cops that, quote, "I'd been drinking and I just did something dumb." On December 30th, 2018, a 7-year-old African-American girl, Jasmine Barnes, was killed in a drive-by shooting. Witnesses said a white man in a pickup truck was nearby. "We've got to call it what it is. Black people are being targeted in this country," said activist Derek Muhammad. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat of Texas, insisted, "Do not be afraid to call this what it seems to be, a hate crime." But the investigation led to the arrest of 2 African Americans, Eric Black Jr., name again, and Larry D. Woodruff, who police believe shot into Barnes' car in a case of mistaken identity. The past New Year's Eve, 3 Savannah churches and a civil rights museum were vandalized, raising the specter of a hate crime. But it was an African American, David Smith III, who had thrown bricks through the doors. Video went viral of a January 18th confrontation at the March for Life in Washington, D.C., showing a group of students from, here we go, hope you're sitting down, Covington Catholic High School in Kentucky. Some of them were in MAGA hats in a confrontation with a Native American, Nathan Phillips. They were in the process of attacking these 4 black individuals. Phillips told the Detroit Free Press, "I was there and I was witnessing all of this. As this kept on going and escalating, it got to the point where you do something or you walk away, you know. You see something that's wrong and you're faced with that choice of right or wrong." Except that other videos quickly proved that Phillips was lying. A group of black Israelites, folks, remember this? Did you hear? Did you see the video? Did you hear what they were saying? A group of black Israelites were taunting the Covington teens with racial insults such as "Christ is coming back to kick your cracker asses." And Phillips wasn't surrounded by the Covington students. He walked into the group and started banging a drum in the face of one of the kids, whose bewildered expression had online commentators quick to label a smirk. A lawyer for a Covington student has filed a defamation suit against the Washington Post for $250 million in damages. Question for you, just generally. What do I got? I got about 12 minutes left before the end of the show. Question for you, whether you're listening live or in podcast. And I get, by the way, I get a lot of truckers listening to me late at night. Thank God for you guys, for truckers, male, female, doesn't matter who. You keep America moving. Thank you for listening to me live, and thank you for listening to me in podcast. Just have to give out a shout out to the various truckers. Because, hey, trucks are homes on wheels. And what do homes have? The internet. And what can they do to my show? They can listen to it. So thank you. This is the story you've been waiting for. I just found out about this today. Now, customarily, I set up my show at least a day in advance, and I have a whole bunch of tabs up on my computer right here that you can't see, and I line them up one by one in a chronological order, in an order that I want to set up. And I didn't see this one until just before I got here. I happened to be scurrying around on the internet, and then I saw this from, of all places, Newsweek. And this is great. I haven't seen it anywhere else. That's not saying that it hasn't been anywhere else on the television or videos or stuff like that, but I can't monitor that stuff all the time. Oh, this is just so good. This is the one where you're going to lose part of your ass. I did when I read it. Thank God. Here's one point. Thank God I wasn't drinking a carbonated beverage of any sort when I read this story. Here's the headline from Newsweek. South Carolina mayor says yellow sticky substance on her car was sprayed by vandals. Police say it's... Okay, well, let's read the story and find out what it is. The mayor of a South Carolina town believed, by the way, she's a black mayor. The mayor of a South Carolina town believes she was the target of a hate crime after cars belonging to her and her husband were dusted with a mysterious yellow sticky substance. So, you have to have an investigation, do you not? Yes, you do. Local and state police investigated the claims made by Lamar, the city of Lamar, Mayor Darnell Bird McPherson, who reported that on February 7th at 10 p.m. local time, someone sprayed her 2017 Symphony Silver Hyundai Elantra Sport and her husband's soft-top 1998 Buick Roadmaster. I'll tell you what, a 1998 Buick Roadmaster, that was a hell of a car. I wish I had a four-door hardtop version of that bad boy. Somebody had sprayed both of their cars with some kind of a strange foreign residue outside of their home. And the material, the mayor said, she remembered, got in all of the grooves of her husband's gray sedan. What had occurred is this. The mayor had returned home, to her home, after a meeting in the larger city of Hartsville, and it's about 22 miles north of Lamar. And she says, my husband went out to the car to get some things, and out of the garage, she told Newsweek, he said, my God, somebody has painted your car. She recalled that the couple's neighbor, who'd stopped by in his van to pick up some laundry, also chimed in. Darnell, there's something on your car, she remembered him saying. They started rubbing it. It was this yellow, sticky substance. So I was like, what is this? She said her husband and the neighbor started scraping all over their cars to rid what they described as a grainy substance akin to an industrial spray foam used to patch concrete. It looked like little pebbles, she said. Setting in was the deafening fear of an attack. I likened it as to a hate crime because, number one, there's a history of this in our town of Lamar. The volunteer mayor of the town with approximately 988 constituents said, in the 1970s, racial acts were not uncommon in Lamar, where the mayor said burning crosses was once a pastime. According to a New York Times article that was dated March 4th, 1970, an estimated 200 vigilante white men wielding axe handles, chains, and stones charged 3 school buses carrying black children and prevented them from heading to attend newly segregated schools. And again, that's back in 1970. So clearly there's a history of evil racial componentry in Lamar. If the safety of our children is not sacred to all men, then the entire process of law and government is meaningless, the governor, named McNair, declared afterwards. Okay, so that memory, way back in 1970, of the past, were front and center for Mayor McPherson upon seeing her car being defaced. It ignited some fear in my spirit, she said. My God, who would do that? It was something. It was just unnerving to me. And so she is seriously upset about this. So in the incident report, which was obtained by Newsweek, this is a Newsweek article, her husband asked her, "Where did you go today? The cover's it's covered in paint." And the report went on to detail how the mayor and her husband streaked a finger over the tarnished parts, servicing the car. And they discovered it wasn't paint and that the substance could be removed with a finger. So it was determined, she explained in the interview, that there were no words or symbols drawn on the cars. The cars were parked in the street near the end of the couple's driveway, a block and a half from Lamar's downtown. She said, "To me, that was the message in and of itself." The mayor said she's lived and traveled throughout the Southeast and calls herself a peacemaker. It's not like I just grew up in this community and don't have any experience, she stated. The mayor is hard-pressed to understand why she was targeted. She said, "I have a good reputation. I have never been subjected to anything like this." Okay, so both cars were rigorously cleaned the day after the incident, therefore a sample of the substance, whatever it was, wasn't preserved. The substance wasn't saved and the cars were actually cleaned, pressure washed twice. There was no substance and they didn't have it for the investigation, argued McPherson. Darlington County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Robbie Kilgo explained that an investigation was opened to determine what the substance was on both of the cars. "We found it to be pollen," Kilgo explained in an interview with Newsweek. "There was no reason for us to collect the sample." I've got a couple minutes left. What do I have? About 5 minutes, 6 minutes? I normally try to do this up front, but you're not going to get away without hearing Here's a story that was seriously undercovered. It was found under covers of the night. Rolling Stones song. This is from the New York Post. And when I pushed this up onto social media, one of my biggest retorts when I put this up on social media was something similar to, "Do it! Do it!" Hope that didn't scare you too much. From the New York Post, the article says, Trump threatens to declassify devastating documents about the Democrats. And now you know why I said, do it. In a wide-ranging, exclusive interview with the Post, President Trump said Wednesday that if House Democrats launched probes into his administration, which he called presidential harassment, they'd pay a heavy price. If they go down the presidential harassment track, if they want to go there and harass the president and the administration, I think that'd be the best thing that would happen to me. I'm a counterpuncher. No kidding. Donald. I'm a counterpuncher, and I'll hit them so hard they've never been hit like that, he said during a 36-minute Oval Office sit-down. What he said was that he could declassify FISA warrant applications and other documents from Robert Mueller's probe and predicted the disclosure would expose the FBI, the Justice Department, and the Clinton campaign as being in cahoots to send him up. Do it. I think that would help my campaign. If they want to play it tough, I will do it too. They'll see how devastating those pages are. Do it. But Trump told the Post he wanted to save the documents until they were really, actually, very much needed. Do it. It's so much more powerful if I do it then, Trump said, because if we'd done it already, it'd be yesterday's news. Trump revealed, do it. Trump revealed his playbook just as Democrats are set to take over a ton of House committees. Where they're going to, you've heard this, they're going to investigate everything. They're going to get the past 78.725 years of his tax returns. They're going to try to set him on fire. His potential business conflicts, his conflict of interest, like I said, his tax returns, all those terrible, heinous Russian dealings and more. And with the GOP, of course, losing power, they lost the House in January. Its congressional investigations into alleged Department of Justice misconduct in launching the Russia probe is going to fizzle out. By the way, I got 3 more minutes. I have enough time to make this point. Isn't it interesting, ladles and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, isn't it interesting how you've noticed that prior, during the time of Robert Mueller, it was all about Russian collusion. We're going to finally prove how much collusion there was and what a pony Trump is. Well, Trump is Putin's pony. He's his poodle. Trump is Putin's poodle. And now that information has come out indicating that, well, you might not get a whole lot of that in the Mueller report if it even comes out at all, and that's essentially up to Attorney General Barr to determine how much of that is going to come out, how much of it is classified, and we are not going to be privy to seeing the classified information. That all considered, isn't it interesting how the chant now is moving and transforming over into, no, it's not so much Russian collusion anymore. Now we're going to go for his taxes, and the scope of the Mueller investigator, listen to this, the scope of the Mueller investigation was just way too limiting, way too limiting. I'll say it with finality for tonight. I'll be back on Thursday. You can't make this up. I said since, and I have been continuously saying since 2016, you are witness to a soft coup against a presidential nominee, a president-elect, and a currently sitting president of the United States of America. If any of this had been happening to anyone other than Donald John Trump, it wouldn't be an infinitesimal percentile of the issue that it is now. Because Lord knows everyone has been trying in the deep state and elsewhere to bring down Donald John Trump because he doesn't play nicely in the political sandbox, and he's made primarily, at least up to this point, of Teflon, and we have to bring him down because we've never encountered anybody like this before, and he's not marching to the tune that we demand, is he? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzepp, my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to Redcon One Media for simulcasting my show. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. And thank you ever so kindly for listening live. Thanks to Dave Milner in the first hour. Thanks to everybody for being in chat. Thanks for listening in podcast later on. I appreciate each and every one of you, each and every hour that you take to listen to me. You got a busy day and a busy night, so thank you for that. I'll be back on Thursday night. Thanks to Redcon One, thanks to SHR. Everybody, please, God bless, take care, be safe. See you then.
Cast later on.
Yeah, there was. Are you muted? Zero sound issues. Actually, that was the first thing I did when I went outside was checked all your feeds. And had no issue whatsoever. Who complained? Was it Mary?
No, she wasn't even in here.
She was in regular chat earlier. I saw
And
her.
She left after about.
Oh, okay.
She didn't stay long.
Okay.
Who was it? Alaskan.
Really? What was he listening on?
Then later on, he went and said, "Okay, I'm hearing it on Redcon. Okay, I'm hearing it on Facebook."
Okay. It had to have been him.
And oh, let me look at Spreaker.
But Spreaker, you were live earlier.
202.43. So Spreaker came through.
Yep.
Spreaker was just fine.